Hi, my name is Dr. Kristen Nielsen Donnelly, and I am here to talk to you very briefly about Baptists for non-Baptists, as I call it, a translation guide, because it's one of those things, that word Baptist carries quite a lot of baggage sometimes. People make a lot of assumptions about what Baptists are and what Baptists aren't, and so in order for non-Baptists to interact with the Baptist Joint Committee, I think some of the work that we have to do is kind of break down exactly what the heck Baptist means. So, briefly, I am not a Baptist. I've been educated by Baptists and have spent a lot of time with Baptists, but it's not my primary identity. And so as kind of the insider-outsider, wanted to just cover a quick couple of things that I think are really important for non-Baptists to know about Baptists. First of all, they are not a denomination. That's incredibly important. Nearly everybody I talk to in Protestant spheres, as I carry out my research, I have a PhD in sociology of religion, people will talk about the Baptist denomination. That doesn't exist. Mostly they're in groups, conventions, fellowships, things like that, where you get to mutually decide that you're going to hang out together. There's no hierarchy, there's no structure, there's no real kind of anything. So the largest group of Baptists in the world is the Southern Baptist Convention, otherwise called the SBC. And they have a leadership and they have a lot of other stuff. But primarily how you join groups of fellow Baptists is who you're going to give your money to. It's not a whole lot more complicated than that. So the second thing they're not is what you hear about in the media. Not entirely anyway. Baptists are, because I think they're so misunderstood, they get maligned quite a lot. And a lot of reporters, Baptist is pretty quick shorthand for fundamentalist or conservative or evangelical. And there's so much more depth and breadth to the Baptist tradition, especially in the United States, than just those buzzwords. So really quickly, what are they? So the distinctives. 3 key distinctives that I want to go over really quick that are incredibly important. Now, most people who study Baptist life say that nearly every grouping will have more than this, but these are the 3 that nearly every group has, if that makes sense. So the first one, and this is fundamental to why there are Baptists in the world, period, is this idea of believer's baptism, which is the idea of the fact that the sacrament that Christians engage in, baptism, by water, is something that has to be done by a cognizant adult. So you can't be sprinkled with water as an infant and have that count. You have to be baptized as an adult. Very important, big thing. People have died over this, believe it or not. It's been a whole thing. So the next one is local church autonomy, and this is why they're all so different. Every church gets to decide who they ordain and who they are and what they're going to preach and how they're going to interact with the Bible. It's pretty big fundamental stuff that every church gets to decide, and that's a real key distinctive. The final one is religious liberty. So this has been part of the Baptist story in the United States since the very beginning. Before there was a United States, there were Baptists in this land fighting to make sure that there was no state church in these new colonies. They had been persecuted in other places. They had been burned at the stake. No kidding. They had been dealing with this conversation of what does a state church look like for so long. They might not have necessarily been sure that what America was going to look like, but they knew that in order for it to succeed, it had to be religiously independent. There had to be religious liberty codified into its very, very bones. And aren't we so lucky they fought hard for that? So why should us non-Baptists trust the Baptist Joint Committee to deal with things on religious liberty? First of all, as I discussed, Baptists innately get religious liberty. They've been doing it for longer than there's been in America. So that's kind of key. Second of all, they don't answer to anybody else. The BJC doesn't work for a denominational office that has other, agendas or political things. This is their thing. This is the show. This is what they care about. They are here to protect the First Amendment, to make sure that Congress shall establish no faith, and that your civic participation is never determined by your religious participation. That's their bag. That's what they do. It's really nice to be able to trust somebody who does one thing and one thing really, really well, and they deep dive into it, and so you can really handle it, which brings me to my final point. Y'all, outsourcing is the key to life. You don't need to follow this stuff really closely. You don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of why, the cake case going before the Supreme Court is really important or isn't really important. You just get to trust the BJC. How beautiful is that? If you've got any further questions, please make sure to go to the BJC online at bjconline.org. Thanks so much.